bonus content. Good morning. My name is Sarah Anderson from the choir. You may recall that I was meant to do a forum today on the hymnal. You don't recall that. Life has changed. The world is on fire. All bets are off. But it's still true. I was meant to lead a forum on the hymnal. I'm not going to try and do that right now. That would be bonkers. But I can at least talk to you about the hymns that we did today, and I think they're a good representation of what the hymnal has to offer. The first one was 204, Now the Green Blade Riseth. The words are by John MacLeod Campbell Crum, and you say, oh, obviously related to beloved Anglican World War I chaplain John MacLeod Campbell. Sorry, no. He's related to John MacLeod Campbell, the Scottish Reformed theologian, which is to say Presbyterian, who died in 1872, the same year his grandson, J.M.C. Crum, was born in England, and he became an Anglican priest. So there may be some family dynamics there. J.M.C. Crum wrote some children's books, some books about architecture, and a handful of hymns. And if you ever come to the real forum, you will get tired of me saying that hymns are text. So he wrote these hymns. And Now the Green Blade Riseth is by a long shot the most popular. It uses all this springtime imagery that you find in John 12 and 1 Corinthians 15. And it was published in 1928, written for this tune. The tune, of course, is Noël Nouvelle, which is early 16th, possibly late 15th century French. It was almost certainly written for a nativity play. The original lyrics are just listing off all the stuff you'd have in a nativity play. So it's the shepherds see an angel and they go to the manger and they see Jesus. It's like a stage manager's checklist for a Christmas pageant. I know it as Sing We Now of Christmas. But more than half of the time this tune appears in a hymnal, it's as Now the Green Blade Riseth. And another chunk of the time, it's Welcome Happy Morning, Age to Age Shall Say. So as much as it was originally a Christmas tune, and in my head it's a Christmas tune, in the world of hymnals, it is an Easter tune. The other, of course, was Come Ye Faithful, Raise the Strain. The words are originally by John of Damascus, who was a 7th century Byzantine monk commemorated by the Episcopal Church on December 4th. He did a lot of writing that's still being studied, including a thing called On Dragons and Ghosts. Doesn't that sound fun? He contributed a lot to chant and hymn structure in the Byzantine Rite churches. Some people say that he standardized Byzantine chant. He wrote a whole lot more hymns than our buddy J.M.C. Crum did. That's why he's in the hymnal twice. First this, which again is using the same spring imagery from 1 Corinthians 15, and the day of resurrection. Both of them are translated by John Mason Neale. That's interesting to me because I think of John Mason Neale as the Latin guy and John Keble as the Greek guy, but they both did both. John Mason Neale was not really in the planned forum so much because there is just too much John Mason Neale to talk about. If you look at the index of this hymnal, which you may as well, Neale has more hymns credited to him than anybody else. 2.5% of the hymns in this hymnal are John Mason Neale. He had an emphasis on accurate translation over singability. And so even the very first things that he had published, the editors were going, John, buddy, we're going to make this little tweak. We're going to make this little tweak. And he was okay with that. He was just happy to contribute to the hymnody. That was his thing. In some hymnals, this text is set to a 16th century Bohemian tune, Gaudeamus Pariter. In fact, right here, hymn 200 is that text to Gaudeamus Pariter. And today we did 199, which is Saint Kevin. Kevin was a 6th century Irish saint, the patron of blackbirds. Seamus Heaney wrote a big famous poem about him in 1996. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can go find a video of Seamus Heaney reading St. Kevin and the Blackbird, and you can come back and I'll still be here talking about hymns. But that's neither here nor there because there's good no good reason for this hymn to be called that. It is by Sir Arthur Seymour Sullivan, as in Gilbert and Sullivan. Besides light opera, he wrote a lot of parlor songs. The Lost Chord is probably the most famous. You're too young for it. And he wrote about 70 hymn tunes. I did not intensely research all of them, but at least a few times he wrote tunes for texts that already had two or three good solid tunes associated with them. His got just overshadowed and left behind. For example, his tune for Rock of Ages Cleft for Thee, not great. What did catch on is St. Gertrude from 1871, written for a little thing called Onward Christian Soldiers. There are a couple of St. Gertrude, so you're obviously thinking, Sarah, which St. Gertrude was this dedicated to? None of them. Uh, it is named after his friend Gertrude, whom he was staying with at the time. St. Kevin was written a year later. I'm not sure who he was staying with then, but I do know that this coming Wednesday would be his 178th birthday. So, in these two hymns, we have spanned more than 1,000 years, from John of Damascus, writing sometime between 700 and 749, to John MacLeod Campbell Crumb's poem published in 1928. You can arguably say that it spans nearly 2,000 years, thanks to these very clear references to First Corinthians, which was likely written between 53 and 57. If you haven't gotten enough First Corinthians 15 this season, check out Messiah, because it is just pounding that First Corinthians 15 right into your head. We've got in these two hymns one set of words written to fit a tune, one tune written to fit the words. We've got Greece, France, England, England again, but still, that's pretty cool. And that is just two hymns in one season, 5 pages apart. That's the variety that this hymnal has. And that's what you're missing out if you're not reading it. Bye bye.